We can-
Regulars.
Yeah.
We can start with the roll call for the January 13th, 2025 Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Try to do that. Aaron Angel.
Here.
Scott Conlon.
Here.
Thomas Davis.
Here.
Sam Libby is not present. Hannah Monroe.
Here.
That's it, huh?
Nicholas Novello.
Here.
Randy Reyes.
Here.
And Council Liaison Sean McCoy.
Present.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. So the first order of business, because it is January, New Year, we have to go through the process to elect a new chair and a vice chair. But before we even do that, I want to acknowledge Brandy. Welcome to the board. So exciting. We'd like to go around the room and just do a quick round of introductions so you get familiar with everyone and maybe say anything too about yourself as well. But maybe we'll start with Jeff, or I guess I can go first. I'm Nick. Fine.
I'm Jeff Friesner, Director of Recreation and Culture.
Ben Ryder, Recreation and Golf Superintendent.
David Bell, Director of Parks, Natural Resources, and Open Space.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm the Open Space Manager.
Stephanie Baker, Manager of Parks and Trails Development.
You want to do
Oh,
Erin.
I'll go alphabetically. I'm Erin Angel, and I'm a board member, and I work for Cottonwood Institute with connecting underserved people to the outdoors and to nature.
And Aaron just got reappointed.
Okay, great. Yay!
I think I might be next. I'm Hannah
Yes.
Woolwright. I'm a board member as well, and I work for the city of Longmont Park Communications as the renewable energy manager as well. So, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Davis. Oh, here we go. Oh, great. I'm Tom Davis. I'm a Parks and Rec board member, and I'm a project estimator for a big asbestos abatement firm.
Oh. I think we're.
Oh, it's me. Okay, I think it's, I'm Sean McCoy, Longmont City Council. Nice to see you.
Scott Conlon.
And Brandy.
And me.
Yeah.
So I'm Brandy Reyes. I work at CU Boulder as an assistant director of advising and internships. And then I'm also doing a graduate degree in outdoor recreation economy with a focus on inclusion and belonging in outdoor spaces. Thank you.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brandy. Okay, so we need to get to electing a chair. So I think the way we handle this is we nominate potential chairs, and then we'll take a vote and see how it goes, right?
Yep.
So, would anyone like to nominate anyone or self-nominate for the role of chair? Wow.
I suppose I'd like to nominate Nicholas Novello as the
Thanks, Tom. We don't need to take a vote on that just yet, right? Is there any other nominations for chair? Okay, all right. Well, if that's the case, then all those in favor of electing Nicholas Novello as chair, those in favor? I guess so. You have to do it in front of you. 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Okay. That is unanimous. Great. Thank you, everybody. Happy to serve. You serving. We do also need a vice chair, and the vice chair's role is important because if in the event that I'm not absent, can't be around, the vice chair needs to fill in and key role. Anyone would like to nominate or self-nominate to the role of vice chair? We do need a vice chair. Let's move on with that one.
I know I'm new, but I'm happy to nominate myself as vice chair.
Great. Thank you.
I was just gonna nominate you, Hannah, but you know.
That's fine. I'm familiar with parliamentary efforts and holding meetings and stuff, so I'm happy to be back up.
anyone else? And it's, well, respectful here. Okay, if that's the case, no other nominations, no other nominations, no other nominations, the three-time rule. All of those in favor of Hannah Mulroy as the vice chair, please say. Yeah, aye. Thank you.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's also unanimous. Great. Welcome, Hannah. Awesome. Okay.
Thanks.
Let's keep going to the approval of the agenda. And before we get to the approval of the agenda, Dave wants to say a couple words.
Definitely, thank you. Our returning chair, thank you.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to give the board a little bit of information before we start the meeting, and also the public is here to speak as well, just to kind of help people understand what they may hear tonight and what we as staff can help them with. On council's agenda for the upcoming meeting tomorrow night, there is a topic under general business for the land swap between an open space property and a piece of property held by several other other city funds. That will require a disposition of open space, which has the public asking a lot of questions, and there'll be people there that probably talked about that. The board here doesn't have any information really yet because we won't be directed, may be directed by council tomorrow night to move forward with that. If that happens, Danielle will be presenting at the February PRAB meeting to talk about the land swap and what that means as far as the open space program and how the disposition process works. So sequencing and information falling out, we're trying to make sure that everyone has as much as we can provide as staff right now, but also the public definitely has the ability to share their thoughts and ideas with the board that can help you get ready for next month. Staff is here to share as much as we can tonight. Danielle does have a little information if you want that. But really after tomorrow night, if council gives us direction to move forward, because that's when we'll really start preparing for a presentation in the next meeting. The other thing for Nick, typically, the board doesn't respond back to the public, but if you do want to direct staff to try to answer any questions we can tonight, we're happy to do whatever you would like us to share. Is that fair, Danielle? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, with that said, it's a fairly clear-cut agenda, but if there's any other amendments you'd like to make? If not, then is there a motion to approve the agenda as agenda? Scott,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
we have a second?
I second that.
Thanks, Tom. All those in favor? All right. Okay, we got it all. Yep. Saw the hands.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and then we have the previous month's minutes from December last year. Geez, forever ago. Any questions, comments, adjustments for previous month's meeting minutes? Quiet. Okay. Is there can I have a motion? Is there a motion to approve the previous month's minutes as is?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the previous month's minutes.
And a second. Scott? Great. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is unanimous as well. Okay, great. So then we can move on to our public invited to be heard section of the meeting. And just the rules of the road here, just please state your name and address, and you have about 3 to 5 minutes to talk, and then we might not have time to go into the full address of the full amendment, but I think we have a little bit of availability tonight to do that. So, take us off.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, just your name and address, please.
I'm going to get that.
Okay.
Crab members. Gordon Pedro, 2639 Falcon Drive, Longmont. On reading item 12A of the City Council packet for tomorrow night, I realized that the members of the advisory body might be like the rest of us, in the dark about a proposed property exchange between Longmont Public Works and Open Space Program. The properties in the proposed exchange are known as the distal property and the toll property in Weld County. Having been very involved in advocating for the extension of the open space tax in perpetuity last November, I'm aware of the value that community places on open space. According to the council communication, you will be expected to conduct a public hearing within 60 days after receiving a referral from the City Council, which could come after tomorrow night's meeting. If you read the communication which was in their packet, on which the referral is recommended, you may find it as confusing and incomplete as I found it. A statement such as, quote, staff have started evaluating each property. Looks like a thorough analysis is underway. This is followed by this statement. While exact acreages have not yet been finalized, staff believes that the exchange in the distal property for the toll property clearly meets open space purposes. Maybe. The case may be the case, but I encourage you to ask for the details before setting your public hearing. Be able to defend a decision you make by having answers to this question. How Public Works having a continued operation within the open space, if toll is an open space property, for several decades benefits the open space program. My noisy dump trucks and front loaders do not fit well in an open space area. Remember, cheaper and easier for Public Works may not be better for open space. You will need to make it details in order to make this determination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Can I just stay here? Or do I have to stand up?
You can sit.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Sherry Malloy, 1632 Sherman Way, Longmont resident since 1986. And congratulations to the new people. I was here last year asking for PRAB's endorsement for the open space campaign to have our open space sales tax extended in perpetuity. There was just a small group of us working on that. PRAB unanimously supported that, so thank you. I think that helped with the passage of that. So did TAB, so did WEB, so did SAB, all the HABs did. So it was definitely a whole city effort. And yeah, 74% voted for it, I believe it was 74%. So clearly Longmont residents place high value in open space. And I'm here because I continue to be a supporter and proponent for open space. So I would highly recommend you look at the packet for tomorrow night, and if at all possible, attend or watch the city council meeting. The packet, this part of the packet is on page 1269 in the packet. It's a big packet, so just scroll all the way down. And then yes, watch the council presentation tomorrow night about this, because it's really, as Gordon mentioned, pretty confusing, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different agendas, a lot of things going on, and it's going to be coming to your, if council moves tomorrow night, it will be coming to this body's decision, which is a huge decision to change open space designation. I mean, that is not a light lift, so I would really ask you to consider doing, your due diligence on it. And having said that, I'm very concerned. I should say that this is, part of it, the plan is there's talk with the county to build a compost infrastructure, which I have been a proponent of since 2001, when the recycling center got taxed and built, and with that, next was going to be a composting center, which didn't happen for a variety of reasons. Western Disposal did it for a while, and then they dropped it. A1 Organics has been taking our compost out in Keensburg, which is a 100-mile round trip, so it's ridiculous carbon footprint, but they cut way back on what they would accept because of contamination. So we absolutely need a county and regional organics infrastructure, but it's got to be right, and it's got to be in the right location, and it's got to be the right plan. So that's why I'm here and just asking you to really give it your thoughtful consideration. So right now, yes. So that's basically it. I do want to also talk about, personally as a resident. I don't think it should be that easy to change designation of open space by just going to a board and doing that. It's my understanding that, so you guys will meet next month, and the very next day, council will be meeting, and then it's already on their council communication to move forward with this. So they're basically looking for a rubber stamp from you, is how, is the optics of that look to me. And philosophically, changing that designation is, I find kind of personally offensive, because I think open space then is supposed to be kept open space. And we have the optics of the Kennemoda open space right now, so I think the public would be quite concerned about that. So yeah, just a lot more. I've been getting a lot of questions raised and somewhat answered. I'll be there tomorrow night, and would just encourage you to like I said, really give it your thoughtful consideration and do your homework.
Thank you so much. Do we want to address that?
I think the process piece, I think I'll leave it to Daniel. One piece I'd like to make sure that as clear as I can be on timelines. Right now, as we looked at our notes, the PRAB will get this, like you say, in one packet being asked to make a decision on that. But in those notes, it has it coming back to council actually the end of March. Is that?
There is a gap between the PRAB public hearing on February 10th and when it goes to council.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you
It'll
for
go back
clarifying.
to council as an ordinance, so it'll go back to council twice as a first and second reading. The first time, and this could change, so probably later, but March 25th is what it is scheduled to be right now. And then there will be a second reading.
Okay, good to know. One thing I forgot to add, which is huge. So right now they're talking about switching out the distal open space, which is currently being mined until 2033, with the toll public works property, which Public Works is going to continue to use that for infill and different things for several decades. So our benefit as open space on their property is several decades out. Whereas on the distal property that we currently have as open space, that's just 8 more years, and then reclamation begins. So, that's something I wanted to say. And the other thing is there's no reason why, well, I shouldn't say no reason, there's some obstacles with having a compost infrastructure on the city's property that is not open space, the toll property. So please keep that in mind. There's some issues with it, there's issues with both properties, but to me, as a taxpayer and a proponent of open space, makes sense to me. City has that property, work with that property for the infrastructure and leave the open space plan as it was done. So that's my answer.
Mr. Chair, could I just add one thing?
Yeah, yes.
You just, you have to have a public hearing within 60 days after referral, but it doesn't mean you have to have it next month. 60 days later, it could be March. If you decide that you need more information and can get the details, then set your public hearing appropriately.
Thank you for the feedback on that. Appreciate it. Thank you. I want to ask anyone from the board if there's any questions for city staff on this topic. It's okay if it's the answer staff. On the procedures or processes that we talked about. Randy, Scott, or anyone on Zoom.
Are we gonna go over this, in depth? I mean, I read it and read enough to know that I didn't understand it. So that's what I wanna know.
Danielle, do you want to talk about it? Again, it goes back to if council directs us, Danielle, to your plans.
It's the very first step in this process is to put this proposal in front of city council tomorrow night. And then if council refers it to PRAB, then all the details and the discussions and the presentation happen at PRAB.
Okay. Good to know.
Excuse me, I have a question I asked Danielle, just an email. I know we'll discuss this in more detail, but I'm curious if your staff, your team has engaged with land use DRC managers meetings, so I understand there's designation of open space removal, but would it be in city limits? Is it planned to annex? Is there zoning concerns? I'm just kind of wondering from the land use.
It doesn't go through a DRC process because it's department to department internal to the city.
Yeah, it's okay, but I was gonna say, Hannah, The other piece is that we as natural resource staff are looking at the natural resource piece, the open space piece, and this is being led by other individuals within the city that are taking on the other land use pieces and stuff too. So I would defer, if it comes back to that point, we'll have those answers at council tomorrow night. Those individuals will be helping to present, and they're the ones that probably could best answer those questions.
Okay, I just know sometimes these ideas get far enough along that land use isn't always considered till later, so I guess I would hate to make a referral or consider something when or if it hadn't been, considered of whether it's a permitted use or what land use entitlements might be required. Because composting is hard to cite for not just open space reasons, right? So, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. There's more we need to learn in future meetings, but I think I'd certainly say, for myself, I will likely want to look more into this and go to page 1269 in the packet to learn more about this, so I can get up to speed with it. Any other last comments on this topic before we move on?
No, again, I think as the plug mentioned, this is a topic that's going to have a lot of people looking at it and questioning your decision. So I think as much information as you want from staff, starting potentially tomorrow, will be available and answer as much as can, and then direct people or have people come in that can answer those other questions too.
Okay. We'll plan for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. With that said, it might be something that if we had a direction, we might just start lining those individuals to be up here at that PRAB meeting as well.
In February?
In
or
February,
March?
yes.
Okay. We'll talk about, okay. Okay. If that's the case, we can keep on moving. We're gonna move on to old business now. And we're 8 and 5. Great topic. Stephanie, can you give us a quick update on 8 and 5? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Because Sharon has been disabled. Do you have?
Oh, no.
It should let you do it.
It says boost disabled attendees screen sharing. So that
Share not with.
Yeah, very top.
Yeah, allow participants to share screen. There you go. Hit me. Okay.
Can you
So-
verify that they can see it?
Yeah, I'll ask them. Can you guys see my screen? Okay,
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Absolutely.
All right, so there was a request, I think, Nick, for an 8 and 5 update, so present the 8 and 5 update. So as you guys know, we have,
Why are there 9 items? Sorry. Okay. All right. Please continue.
Clover Meadows is complete. Dry Creek Park, which I had just given Mandy a little bit earlier, is gonna be done potentially into this week or next Wednesday. They discussed some turf gluing they need to finish up at all the 24 drain cleanout locations, and then that project will be substantially complete. Fox Meadows is following with a substantial completion anticipated in February, and then construction acceptance in the spring once they get the final plantings in. We're past the planting season. Everything we do now is winter, it's winter weather dependent. And then Gallo is under construction with the anticipated construction completion end of this year. So we've already kicked off design for phase 4 of Sandstone Ranch, which is 4 ball fields. That next phase just south of the existing ball fields. We have funding in our CIP for the design portion in 25 and then the construction portion in 26. And then looking outward, the remaining projects are the St. Mary Greenway Phase 12, which Daniel's team is managing, the Quail Campus Master Plan improvements, the Union Reservoir Interim Trail, and the Dry Creek Community Park. The reason you see 9 is because we've included Gallo in there, because it is the park fund, and it's actually, it has all the parts and pieces of the others. So we were challenged to do 8 parks in 5 years, but that is an additional park that's under construction. Having said that, for the time frame for these next projects,
So all of these projects are funded with the park fund, which is a development fee. So this year, last year, 2024, we were a committed working capital of $23 million to do Fox Meadows, Clover Meadows, Dry Creek, and Lino. You see that big spike in 24 there. So typically our park improvement fund brings in about $2 million plus dollars a year in revenue. That stack of expendable money was just all of the years that hadn't been used on new parks, and finally getting all of those done. So as we look ahead, we've been funded, as I had mentioned, for 25 for sandstone design, which is the smaller little bar at 25. That remaining portion that was funded for 25 is going to work towards the construction piece of 26, in addition to what was funded. We were still unfunded $2.9 million for that park. We found some ways to make up that money. One, we're seeing some savings from the first 3 parks projects that we did with the park fund, which equates to roughly $1 million in savings. And then we also have $1.9 million tied up in the Union Loop Trail project under the park fund right now, and we're proposing to potentially appropriate that money towards this project to make it whole. On the Union Loop Trail, Danielle and David are actually best to speak to that because it's them that we're working on that project. But the $1.9 million that was funded for that project isn't sufficient for that loop trail, and it benefits the Union Reservoir Company. So there are discussions that if they need that access road, that they provide that access road, and then we utilize that money to support our park project. So I can have them talk a little bit more about that. I'm not on the water board or any of those things for them. And then looking beyond that, you'll see in 27, we have in revenue at that point, and this takes into account any anticipated carryover from the previous year that wasn't included. We have about 2.2 million, which we're looking at our largest projects following this date. So Dry Creek is currently estimated at 21 million. That's all in with design and all. And then Quail Campus at 16 million. So if you add up the anticipated revenue from 27, 28, 29, and 30, we're only at about $9 million in revenue. So that isn't enough to do either of those projects. So we're really looking at what can we do at this point to get something. There's discussions of, do we create smaller scopes to get some of the pieces that are of the most value to the community and phase it a little bit, just so that our revenue can keep up. So that's up for discussion, and that'll be a part of what we put together in the CIP this spring for 26 through 30. That's it in a nutshell. So we've worked hard to spend the money that had not been spent, but now we're reaching the part where we're kind of up against the wall of the revenue source.
Before any questions on Scott or anyone on the Zoom? Scott. Okay, Scott. Oh, you didn't have one? Oh, I just assumed.
No, yeah.
I saw Tom's, he said, not for me. Okay, wow. Catching up to revenue. What do you mean by that exactly? Like,
it's a development fee, so it's based on new developments around the city. They issue a fee to the developer that they have to pay into this fund. So it's not something that you can go out to a vote and ask for more. It is what it is.
I see.
It wouldn't be. I mean, you could ask for them to increase the development fee. I don't think it would be favored or pass. So that's kind of where we are. We've started projecting 10 years out over the past 6 months because it's really valuable to see farther than the 5-year CIP to kind of see how it's playing out so that we can proactively have these conversations and start to come up with a strategy. This is the only fund that funds our new park projects.
Right.
On our renewals, we have the Parking Green and Maintenance Fund. We also use the Public Improvement Fund, and then with some trails, conservation trust, and whatnot. That's just the challenge of this fund. It's the costs have continued to go up for the larger scopes, and so then is it a reassessment of what those scopes look like so that we can provide something with the funding that we do have.
Scott.
So is there like a natural break for those 2 big projects? Do you think that would?
It would probably be most beneficial to move Quail Campus up in front of Dry Creek and maybe pare it back a little bit to provide the best value to the community from what that initial master plan was. Having said that, the initial master plan had an ice skating rink, and there had been talk since then of doing pickleball in lieu of the ice skating rink. So I think there's bigger questions with council on exactly what that looks like. But I think it's worth taking this to council and just saying, here's kind of where we are. What is their thought on how we might divide this scope? But we have found a way to finish sandstone, so that will be complete by the end of 26. And then we're kind of at this new spot in 27 looking ahead. You see the 5 orange bars down there, the really little ones.
Yeah.
Those are our 2-term positions that they had in order to onboarded in 23 in order to help support a lot of this work, which is how we got so much work done. And so those sunset in 28. So then we're back to 2 project managers at that point, which, we've done a lot of great work.
Were you talking about sandstone getting the ice skating rink?
No, quail.
Quail, okay, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned planning 10 years out. Great. I noticed when you look at the funding chart here that you have 5 years and then 10 years out, but then there's those 4 years in between there.
The revenue is the red dots on the red line. We don't have a CIP beyond 5 years.
Right.
So for new parks, I don't have that information. That's why that's blank. But that's just showing where our revenue would stand.
Where it would stand.
It's projection of development. So
Okay.
it's a crystal ball look a little bit.
Got it. Scott.
Have you ever put a new rec center back out to the voters? Could you tie in Dry Creek Community Park as part of the project?
That's a good question.
I have confidence in Stephanie.
Well, he's saying if you go out to the vote, would that cost of that park be included in that revenue? And I don't know what revenue you guys use for the recreation center.
There'd be a bond, so, I think if it's the same location, then theoretically, you could. I think it's a different location, it'd probably be a different sort of thing to look at.
Sorry, I don't think I understand the question.
I said Jeff would fund it.
Oh, yes,
yes.
No, he was asking, because we were just looking at beyond 27 and kind of the challenges with our revenue for park development and it not keeping up with what we plan to build. And with Dry Creek, it's currently estimated at 21 million. So Scott's idea is if we were to go back out to a vote, could we lump that park development in with the rec center and build the whole thing?
I think we could. I think the question would be the long run, if that's appropriate. If it's all Parks and Rec, we might.
In one location.
Yeah.
Be appropriate.
And we also spoke a little bit to if quail were to come a little sooner, or maybe we revise the scope to be something of more value to the community that we do have money for. Not really knowing what those details are. But I also mentioned the Union Reservoir Loop Trail funds, and I said that you could, and Danielle could speak better to that, as to whether we could potentially appropriate, if that was favored by council, to support the sandstone project.
Yes, so we've already been talking to Joni Marsh and the Union Reservoir Company. The Reservoir Company has revenues right now that they're sitting on from oil and gas, and we've been working with them to try to cover costs of things that are beneficial to the Reservoir Company, but also have value to the residents too. As a fiduciary sitting on that board, you have to be thinking of the Reservoir Company's best interest, but having a maintenance road benefits them, and also could be a trail. Having the road move benefits them for expansion, benefits us for the beach area too. So it's just gonna be some negotiations with the Union Reservoir Company to make sure that they feel comfortable spending their reservoir dollars to achieve goals that benefit both. And at this point, we don't feel the city should be spending money on those pieces right now. When we're partnering with them, and Danielle's team is actually helping with providing a project manager if they'd like to do that. So I think us being on the board, us being in those conversations, knowing where we need to have some black and white hard lines between what the city can do and what the Reservoir Company can do. We're like, can he do that? And we would take those dollars that were designated for the loop trail and some other work out there and shift those to some of the other 85 projects. Danielle, anything else you would share with them?
You got it.
All right, any other questions on this topic from Zoom? Has came on camera, shake your head no, okay. I like the graphic on the side. That's really nice. I'm gonna take a photo of that. That's just memories for me. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions or comments on this topic, I really thank you for these updates. This is really helpful for me. I appreciate it.
Okay, if I could just give a plug in here for all the way through this process, from council realizing this is a priority to then Harold and others looking for creative ways to get additional staff to get this done. It is impressive to see those check boxes,
Yeah.
seeing things under construction. And I was telling you, being out on the artificial turf out at Clover Meadow with these two,
Drake.
Dry Creek. It was, it grins like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was pretty impressive to be out there and see that.
That flexible,
Yeah.
everything.
So I look forward to, we're gonna have some challenges with funding going forward, but I think it shows our ability, if we really want to get things done, we can get things done if we put money and resources in the right spot.
And focus. I'll add.
Exactly, thank you.
Okay. Well, if that's that, then we can move on to the new business. We got a couple of quick ones we can run through, but they are important to work through these. First one is the designation of the meeting day and time. There's not necessarily for sure that we need to choose this date and time. If we want to continue to change the time, we can consider that. If not, we can stick with the initial first Monday of every second Monday. Oh gosh,
6:30.
Second Monday every month at 6:30. And if we like that time, then we can. Well, if there's a motion to keep that time, we can keep moving along.
Does it still work for Stan?
Of course.
I make a motion that we keep the current time and date.
Okay. You have a second? Oh, Brandon beat you to it. Scotland. Nice. Good. Okay. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Everybody says yes to that. Great. Okay. So we're stuck here on the second Monday every month. Great. All right. Move on.
Was that a motion?
That was the motion.
So we're stuck with that. I see how you.
It's a new year. Did I have a faux pas just now? Maybe a little bit. That's fine. Okay. Next up, meeting location. In theory, we could move the location if we wanted to. Do we want to do that? Would we recommend to do that from the staff?
No, I think it's worth out here having access to the city computer and everything. And certainly if there are times where you would like to go to a different location just for that time, we can make arrangements for that. But having that general designation here, I think is good.
I also I shared with Jeff last week or something. We have invested some in, Danielle's done a lot of work on this too, to get building 1 done over there for the computers and stuff set up. Well, Stephanie did a lot of the design stuff. Danielle made sure that it was a very usable meeting space. So if we have a need to have more public in for a public hearing, building 1 actually should work pretty well for that.
I like that myself because I think people need to see these facilities that you all work in to see the value in that this is not just strictly a office space, but also a meeting space. And I like the fact that you have that because I was going to suggest if this thing does go through with this switch, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to have conversations about that. So that would be logical.
And it's convenient. It's quick.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of staff.
Okay. So, is there a motion to set the meeting location for?
I move that we stay the same meeting location, except for when we need to go on field trips.
Okay. Great. Is there a second? A second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Tom. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's great. All right, we're gonna stay here. All right, we're all stuck here. All right. Cool. All right. Next is posting the prop agendas. This is so that public invited to be heard knows where to come. And I think we've done this at the rec center.
The primary one is on the city website. But we've also posted at the rec center, the memorial building, senior center.
Library, civic
The
center.
library doesn't post it.
Right. Civic center has
Civic
one
center.
But the official one is the
Is the
website.
what, yeah.
Yes.
We'd like to, if you could just make a motion to designate the website as the official location.
Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion that the official hosting site for private agendas is the city website.
And I'll second it.
All right, Thomas and money. Okay. All those in favor? You did that. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And virtual hand, 6. Great. Okay. Next up is talking about what we're going to talk about this year. And of course, from month to month, things are going to come up and we're going to have to change as situations change and adapt. But it's nice, I think, early at the beginning of the year to have some brainstorming of different directions we can go into about what we could be looking into in future discussions. So, we don't need to make a motion on this. We don't have to agree to necessarily a set agenda. But I think I just want to use this time to talk through any ideas from the board. Want to speak up about what you'd like to see us talk about in future months. Before I do that, though, is there anything that you want to say, Jeff?
No, normally I hand out a draft, and because of the unknown with the open space, I didn't want to put anything out there because that could end up being your entire agenda next month. And so we want to get a feel of what direction we get from council. There is another potential public hearing that we might have to do in March. And so if you have anything that is related to field trips, we've historically talked a lot about any specific things with trails or other open space items. If we could just talk about that tonight, and then David and Ben and I can plug that into a calendar and provide that to you all. March is also usually when we start talking about the capital improvement fund because that in March, April is when we'll start having to make those requests. April will also probably want to talk about budget needs. I'd like to have a few more presentations by recreation this year, where people from the athletic staff and maybe the recreation center could come in and present. The other things that we kind of talked about at the end of last year was a little bit about scholarships, cost recovery, a little bit about Union Reservoir, and maybe a little bit more detail once we find out about the trail and the overall master plan. I think Aaron had made a suggestion at the end of last year about the potential of the board going on a snowshoeing outing and then possibly a joint meeting between PRAB and the transportation board. So I don't know if those are things you all are still interested in, but certainly things we'd like to hear feedback on.
Yeah. Do we have feedback?
I had
Hannah?
Sorry, I had mentioned it, I think during my first meeting with y'all, just kind of time allowing, there's 2 topics of interest for me. One would be a status report on kind of the tree efforts here in the city. So forestry, what the tree fund looks like, what that money's been used for, how many trees have been planted, any areas of concern, if there's any update on the canopy cover that I knew they were working on mapping, I think, with Boulder. So I think, in general, I think it would be nice to know a little bit more about forestry efforts here in the city. And then the other thing potentially would be, I don't know if anybody else is interested in it, but kind of like a status of habitat, wildlife, ecosystem happenings in the city. So I know we get pretty substantial ecosystem reports with every development, and sometimes interesting things are found. Just kind of what's happening out there. I think we really hear about prairie dogs a lot, but not much else. So something, hey, we found 15 nests this year and there was fledglings or whatever the case is. So something specific to wildlife habitat. Again, no hurry on either one of those things if we don't get to them, but kind of open spacey, not so much park recreation stuff.
And I apologize, Hannah, and probably Jeff for not bringing it up, but when you brought that up, I actually did talk to Brett and Jim Crick, and they both agreed that they would be glad to do that, so I think it'd be fun
Great.
time that works for everyone, so I'm sorry I didn't look at him, but
Nope, not a problem at all.
I have
And
talked to
again,
staff.
Great. Yeah, I would love to hear from both of them. I think that would be really interesting for the entire board. Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Em. That's great. And I saw Aaron, you gave a thumbs up. Was that approval?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I'd like the ecosystem. I'd also, interested in the Nature Kids Longmont, like having an update on that, sometime.
There's a possibility that could happen in March.
That is scheduled for March currently, yes.
Thanks. Tom, I saw you come off mute for a second.
Yeah, I was just trying to also add in, at some point it'd be nice to revisit the all-encompassing plan for Union Res, for the pathway going around it, and all of that. That's actually been brought as something my neighbours and other members of like the neighbourhood I'm in have brought to my attention a couple of times, and so just wanted to see if there was a way we could formalise that, put it in front of everyone.
Great, thank you, Tom. Good suggestion. What about in the room? Brandy, you gonna put you on the spot here. No, just
No, I do have questions about the Union Reservoir plans as well, so I would appreciate that. I also love the idea of going on field trips and hearing from people working in facilities and in our programs. I think that we can get a gauge and a pulse of what's going on by talking to folks, so that'd be very helpful.
One of the things that I liked last month was the equity conversation we had of looking for where parks aren't and looking for putting a park someplace, but maybe mixing that with T-Board's I forgot his name already. The maintenance supervisor. Timber, not T-Board, sorry.
Which is
Sorry,
going to be
T-Board
hard
is my-
because Timber left the city.
Oh, Timber left.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. But the park health score to equity. So I think there's a number of things, trails wise, that it seems to be the parts of the trails that seem to have some issues are those that are in other neighborhoods that you don't always go to all the time. So that then you raise the flag of like, do you have the same concern with how the way we treat our parks or the age of our parks? Because that first pass last month was kind of like we do have parks, but all parks aren't equal. So that the equity between the parks spaces. But the rest of your list, Jeff, I'm for all those things. So,
One of the things David and I talked after last month's meeting is that if we ever did a retreat again, that having Tatiana and Stephanie and then whoever is the new Timber come in and talk about the total park health, that's really probably a longer conversation than what you would normally have at a regular meeting. So something we might consider early this year.
I mean, that was a fantastic presentation.
Yeah.
The data we're looking at, that was really.
And I thought it was great interaction with the board. It was probably the most interaction that you all have provided us in a long time. So that is a compliment. I didn't mean that to be a slam.
Seemed like there was a hidden.
No, it's not. It was intended to be a good thing. I thought it was a great conversation.
Great. Was there more?
yeah, no. The only thing I can hear Sam in my head say is maps and data and how we share like what we have for information as another potential piece of like, because it goes to total park health a bit as well, but like how do we communicate needs that we have or what we're going to do, and I can hear his like Esri voice in my head
You channeled Sam, and I
Yeah,
basically in the
so-
room.
And I would just like to share, I appreciate this board really starting to latch onto that. I think the work with Tobaharka is really kind of a key piece of how we look at what we build, how we fund it, how we maintain it, where it falls within our community. It really is, I think, a really holistic look at how we're doing things, and also with those linkages, it's that string you pull, like if you do something over here, it's gonna have an impact over there, and how we try to balance all those needs. So I appreciate your interest in that, and we will continue to, not only do that as staff, but as we're looking to hire a temporary position, make sure we hire someone that really brings that piece of it into the program as well.
Great. The snowshoeing outing, we'd have to plan that pretty soon too, if we were gonna do that. Unless we want to snowshoe on rocks.
March might be good though. March is usually the snowiest.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah. We'll figure that out.
I know some members of council will be, and I will be too, mid-March out for a National League of Cities conference, so it might be just you guys, just
Okay.
you chickens.
My one note would just be, because Jeff, you had mentioned it too, I'd like to see more presentations on the recreation and athletic staff side. I think, we've done a pretty good job talking about open space and parks, which is near and dear to my heart. But outside of the rec center bond proposal, like we haven't really gone too deep in that. So I think that would be something I would like to bring back and make sure that we're balanced about what we should be looking after.
Yeah, I don't get too far ahead of us here, and Jeff, this is his bailiwick right now too, but I do think the success we had in open space, with the work Stephanie's doing to show us where our shortfalls are, I don't think it's gonna be too soon for this group to start thinking about, they really want to think about a next rec center or how they want to get out to the public, that we probably should start thinking about it. And this is one of the pieces I'm saying this, having sat here and listened to, how do we do more, how do we participate, how do we get engaged, and I think this is gonna be one of the opportunities for you all to really be that grassroots piece that you heard Sherry and others talking about, we really have in the open space program.
There may be some benefit to having a member here if they're willing to take the extra duty to attend some other meetings like library and museum. I know you guys do, but having our members here once or attend a few when they're talking about maybe those same issues, that then we get a perspective from that okay, we're trying to go for the same dollars,
Right.
And we need to see what their timeline is and everything. We don't want to do what happened last time, and again, it comes down to we had Magellan doing our data. I think now we have an in-city ability to do those surveys to see, and when we and so they're really excited about doing those surveys and utilizing that software now. So I think it's feasible. But the thing that Magellan did tell us is that you have to have above 60. And I don't think council, after second time getting slapped down on this, is going to say go for anything that's under 60. Just prudently, any council is going to say, what did it happen, 4 or 5 years ago when they tried to do it, and then last year when they tried to do it, and then now, what's changed? And something's going to have to change to really make that. Those numbers will have to be there. The only one that was technically there was library.
The library, right? The 60% threshold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I'm not against it. I'm just trying to say, so I would love, I know that people really do want that. I just know that there's a handful of people that don't think that they want to pay for it.
That's a good question. When we're in the past, when we were getting the word out about the new rec center and everything like that, we talked about that in my interviews. How do you work to get your communication out to all residents of Longmont? Because I know that it's hard to get people to engage, and I think that you all are right, that if we can have a grassroots movement behind this, that it will happen. But how do we engage with folks that maybe didn't engage the first time?
I think we need to start doing that now, because one of the challenges that happened with the last election was that council agreed to put it on the ballot in July. And then on the first reading in August, once that happens, that they actually vote to put it on the ballot, we as staff can no longer talk or advocate about that. And Scott really tried to do that, but I think one of the things we really have learned is that we need at least a year ahead of time to get public feedback and to educate the public, so that when council makes that determination to put it on the ballot, that grassroots group can keep talking when we're no longer allowed to do that. And I think as we get a little bit further into this year, we'll try to start having some public meetings to get people's opinion and see what level of interest that they have in participating. I'll tell you that, as Sean said, the library is having some of these same conversations. And so the last thing we want to do is have too many things on the ballot again and then nothing passes.
And from a out there political candidate point of view, there's some pressure on council members to have something that draws people in. I was looking at the numbers. What is it nationally at presidential elections? 66%. When you're looking at midterms, it's like 30 to maybe 40, up to 50. And then when it hits community, local elections, it's 10 to 20% of the voting public, and it's so sad. And so the logic there is to have an anchor item that pulls people in to talk about it, and it probably just can't be recreation. It's got to be something else. There's got to be something else on the general ballot.
And I think that one of the main problems is the idea of grassroots. Well, grassroots, by definition, creates itself, so we can't just create that. We'll do what we can. That's why we want to get started early, is to try to foster this, to get more people from the public involved. And that was challenging. I mean, we tried, and Scott did so much. And just there wasn't a lot of people to help. Times have changed, and that's unfortunate with that. So that's one of our challenges, of trying to get that out, because eventually and there's only so much we can say even before it's on the ballot.
And the vampire rules kick in, and it's just.
Yeah.
You were gonna say.
Yeah, I think the other thing is there's so many ways to communicate, but not everybody sees them. And so back when we built the Longmont Rec Center, the Times Call was the place to go. Everybody went there, and there isn't that one resource that we had back then. I think the other challenge is we need to do some real work about location, because people really love it in their backyard or they hate it. And the problem is, with each location, there's those two sides. If you don't build it in my neighborhood, I'm not voting for it. If you do, put it in my neighborhood. So somehow we need to work with the people in those areas to try to educate them and get their support. And then the other challenge is a lot of folks want things in northwest Longmont, which is some of the older part of town, and there is no public lands of any size up there to really be able to build a rec center. So if we did it and had to buy property, it only makes it more expensive than it already could be. And then finally, and I'm giving you more than I think you really wanted.
No, I think this is great.
Yeah. I think the other part of it is, Sean referred to the election we did in 2019 as well as the one in 23. And we've really never put the Longmont Rec Center #2 on the ballot. And I think in some ways, that's really what our community wants. And, size of it and location are the two things. But, this last election had some really cool things with it, with working with the Y, but it was so hard for people to really understand what they were voting on, that I think a lot of them just voted no because it was so confusing.
And the survey didn't help.
No.
Much that.
It is pretty exciting, though, that the city having its own survey mechanism, that we can do some pretty cool things now that we've had to always pay for.
Yeah, the cost brings it to a point where you can survey people and go, ooh, maybe this is the year. Where before we had to pay for that extra element, and then you find out no, then you're like, it's just kind of an inflation.
No, I was gonna say, you're probably hearing the same thing over here, but I think it's the same message, and that's why I threw it out there originally, that, again, it's gonna take work from that side and all yours, because again, this side of the table is glad to help out, but we're not gonna be the ones convincing council to put it on, a ballot. It's gonna be you all doing that, and then having staff jump in to really help with that. So again, I think I think you're hearing the same message that, we learned with the open space piece, it was really them coming to this room and saying, we want you guys to do this. So I think that's just again that big push that you're the ones that really influence them. We support them, we support you. And
I love our problem to be that we had to have a meeting in that extra room over there.
Yep.
That where we had so many people saying, hey, I'm gonna be here, or transfer at the last minute because of that.
Scott.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment that, the open space tax extension, they started doing their public outreach the same time we did at Rec Center, but we had a whole vote a year earlier. So, yeah, it's a huge difference in terms of getting people
Good context.
And as everybody said, it was overly ridiculously complicated. We're talking about locations, the why, bond plus sales tax issues. There was a million questions in it, and we're like, in 3 weeks we'll figure it all out, and you should just vote yes.
Oh, yeah. And by the way,
if everybody had any issue, they just voted no to any one of those particular parts of the issue. So keeping it clean and doing it early, that's definitely.
I think I heard Aaron, right?
So I have a question. So I'm trying to figure out our role in this. Is it our role to kind of help find a location? Is it to, it hasn't ever, the last location might not have been real popular from what I got. So is that something that we should be doing?
No, I don't think necessarily. I think we would like you all, as we discuss locations, to, if you have the opportunity to reach out to friends and other people to get their opinion, I think that would be good. I think attending meetings in those neighborhoods where we're talking to the folks that live around there, I think it would be good for you all to be a part of those conversations.
Okay.
We could have the meeting move a little bit for some of those things, to move into areas where maybe that's where the population is interested in hearing it. I can see next to Westview, those fields there, but I don't think the farmer's ready to sell. And that would be the only area there, and I don't know, I haven't looked recently to see the zoning. But on the west side of Airport and Mountain View, that would be the only area that would seem to be logical. But then people would be like going, that Scott's already so busy with this,
Yeah.
that, the other things.
So bringing this back to the agenda, I'm hearing a lot about talking about the rec center or the new rec center. We actually haven't mentioned that as being a topic, but not that it would be a 2025
Needed
thing.
time.
So, but
Needed a minute.
needed a break. Yeah.
I think that we would start putting in a conversation about future recreation facilities, and that could potentially be an ongoing agenda item, not necessarily every month, but every couple of months or so.
Sure.
Because I think that Sean's comment about when to go to the ballot is important.
Right.
Because the more people that go and vote, the better our opportunities to pass.
Midterm is the term time. Midterm 2026, given that year that we're talking about out, and that's the time to do it if you're trying to put something on about, unlike 2025.
Well, and our understanding is the schools always go on the presidential years, and you don't necessarily want to go up against the school bond at the same time.
No, but we also know that they're going to have another 2020 26 would be they'd look at our tax.
Yeah.
Again, that would be also a problem. So
Yeah.
Which was a real problem this last.
Real
Yeah.
big one. Yeah.
I think it was strange that, I think just the inflationary aspects of it just hit too hard. I don't think it'll hit it again that hard. Well,
I do think that there's a growing movement that I've been seeing recently with a lot of folks looking towards local elections because they feel like they don't have as much say at the top of the ballots. So I would be surprised if we didn't see higher midterms if we get word out of there's these really cool initiatives and let's make Longmont the way you all want it to be, and let us provide these services that you all want, right? Because the surveys say they want the rec center, it's just the logistics of it and the money and everything.
All right. This was a good conversation. Any other non-rec center related items to throw out for brainstorming ideas for future agenda items for the rest of the year?
I really like Scott's. I like that one, and I like I really like the state of ecology in the city, so.
Great.
I want those two.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we are. Items from the packet. Anyone have any questions, comments about items from the packet? Let's start with Zoom. Is that no from Hannah?
nope.
No from Tom. Okay. Wow. Scott, Randy? Oh, Scott's got one. Okay.
I've got a few. Hopefully be quick and hopefully be good. Ice pump update, sounds like it got installed. And
It's running beautifully. Since it got in, and then we added some glycol, changed the percentage. Running without a beat for a month now.
Sweet. And so no problems with ice.
Not for
the
the
next
last
20
month.
years. Yeah. Longmont Lights Parade. My impression was that was probably the biggest crowd I've ever seen for Longmont Lights. But it was also a different route because of Kaufman.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it will be a similar route next year too.
It's just the lower half, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but we should be able to, we had some struggles coming back on Longspeak, but we should be able to come back on 8th like we normally do. And it'll improve our experience, and we don't think the rough time we had was experienced by the public, so. But having it come right back down.
Right, yeah, it's just in the road.
Yeah.
It's tough. Is that what kind of felt slow? It kind of felt slow, but.
I'm not sure what that was about.
There was a little bit of trouble turning left
One?
onto Forest, I think,
Yeah.
for a little bit.
For some of the bigger floats, and then back again on the Kaufman or Kimbar. Yeah.
So we learned a little bit about that. So we got a little different plan for next year.
But overall, I
Yeah,
thought,
very, very.
considering all the mess at that corner of Longs Peak and Kaufman,
And that should
it
all
went,
be done.
it went well, but it was nerve wracking, because there are no lights on the corner anymore, you know, they were all removed for the construction.
Right.
They're actually pouring concrete at that corner next week.
Oh, well.
Yeah, they're pouring concrete across from our building right now.
So they should be down Kaufman, and at least for the start of the parade and ending the parade, it should be better next year.
Okay.
Because we artificially kept the numbers down for entries. Because of that, where it was coming back on itself, we were worried of getting all jammed up with that.
Oh,
It worked out fine.
Yeah, you guys did a great job.
Thanks.
I have a question on Dry Creek 1. It was like additional timing, or it was like the Dry Creek pathway or Greenway to Sunset.
There's a meeting this week with Alex from the transportation team, and he's gonna get that, because it's ready to go out to bid, so he's picking that up. So I can have more updates for you next month.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what that meeting, like how far along that was. So,
Okay, I have one.
Oh, Erin,
If I
please.
would go. So I just had a question because I don't understand it. It's under pump and irrigation systems maintenance with Chris Davis. And it talked about the wet well and sand trap cleanings. Where are those? Out of curiosity.
So these guys with golf probably know as much as I do, but I've been out with our staff looking at those. So this is typically in our raw water system. So before when the raw water is coming into our pump system, they usually have a settling area, so a lot of debris and stuff settles out into that, catching that before it goes into the pumps and has sand and stuff or debris in that. Those areas get pretty full of sand over the years, and we've kind of lost some of our internal resources to try to get those areas cleaned out, so we're looking at some contracting dollars to help us with that.
That sounds right to me.
Just like, but where are they?
Oh, so if you think about most of our ditches that come into our parks, so we as a community have for a long time been switching over to raw water in our parks. So the ones right now where our staff really is cleaning up the most is going to be Centennial. That system has, again, it's raw water, but they'll say dirty water, which means it has a lot of sediment. So Centennial Park is one. Stephanie, Kensington's another one. Spangler, yep. So
Sandstone.
the sandstone.
Yeah. And then
Oh yeah,
Garden Acres is it.
Garden Acres.
So there's a lot of that out there.
What I was thinking in there is that those have kind of become habitats usually, if that's what I was thinking was, and they've become habitats. And when we outsource to contractors, they might not be as cognizant of things like looking for, like, basically any amphibian that's not a bullfrog is threatened, you know, and being careful of that kind of thing. So it's sorry, like the cold is really getting to me, but those are kind of the things that I think of when we start contracting out things, is that contractors don't always have the education and the care that we might as city employees.
So
Or
actually agree, and we've had this conversation for a while. Some of these areas are really kind of more concrete structures that are created for this. But even that can have amphibians and stuff in them. But there's one of the things that Jim Crick and his group is really working on constantly, is working with our operations groups and our contractors to make sure if it is going in there during nesting seasons of birds, if it is critical times for pieces of wildlife. And then unfortunately, just like building a park, sometimes there are these conflicts, but we really are trying to do the best we can to get in place the best practices to really minimize that impact. And I think Jim's doing a great job, and maybe during that update you can talk about what he's doing to provide that to our engineers, our contract groups in-house, and then their contractors.
Thank you.
Great. I had one item. I got wildfires in mind. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the news. I was looking at the packet and I noticed that we had won a strategic fire mitigation grant to help pay for some work in Button Rock. I wanted to ask about that and really just like an assessment of like, is that like enough? Are we doing enough? Is that like the iceberg? Is that really?
This might be a really good one to have Price Hadley come and talk about the fire mitigation at Button Rock. That's a great question because Button Rock, you've been up there and it's another spot that is always a great tour as well. But it sits in a spot that is very difficult to do some of the mitigation work in it. We just had a company and we should do this because again, it's the cool part of my job where you just forget about the fact that people know this is going on. But to get some of that timber out, if you just cut timber and leave it there, it just reorganizes the fuels. So you haven't really done a whole lot just by just cutting. So we're always looking at how we actually mitigate the fuels and then what we do with those fuels once they've been taken down. So we actually just had helicopters in there actually doing a helicopter logging operation to try to move materials out of there. Price has been amazing in getting different grants. To his benefit though, the feds, the state, and local governments of all, Boulder County included, have been recognizing that Button Rock Preserve area, we've had major fires all around it. We've been extremely fortunate that we haven't had something really within the preserve itself. And we're continually, we actually had a new forester was brought on last year in a temp position to really help Price once he gets those grants. He's the lead ranger up there. He's doing the public safety, he's doing the trail work, he's doing the management of the dam itself. He's writing the grants, but once he gets the grant, there's a lot of work that goes along with managing those grants too. So we now have a force up there really working on the ground with the contractors to make sure we're able to spend those dollars. Because the last one we do is get these grants and the year go, oh, sorry, we couldn't get done, so we didn't have staffing.
So in November of 2024, I went to the National League of Cities Summit Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and sat down with the FAA and asked them about drones because this is a serious situation of drones flying over bodies of water and areas like that after we've done all this work and that. And the good news here, folks, is that after the drone crashes and burns up the forest, they can action it. That's the good news. So yeah. I said, are you insane? I asked them, and they said no. And I said, well, that's not the good news, because the good news would be is you saying to us, 100,000 people in Longmont who depend on this water here would like it if you could respectfully understand that your drones do not need to fly over our reservoirs, without any sort of clearance or things like that, just like you have made it where drones can't just fly over crowds and situations like that. So they know that people in planes make better choices about where they fly and when they fly because of wind conditions and stuff like that. But people who fly drones aren't in the cockpit, so they don't have anything other than the physical drone that gets lost in the outcome of an accident. And so this is something that, to your fire point, that's an issue, and we now know that somebody goofing around with a drone hit the Canadian plane and grounded it for at least a certain amount of time when it was desperately needed. So, but they can action it afterwards, so there's the positive. And so we needed it, and they knew that we were from Longmont and that we had FAAs in here, so that's something that we need to probably have more people staying. That's not acceptable. That's not a way to do that. Maybe that's an action item to put on here. There just a letter to try to encourage that sort of thing from a board like this that is trying to preserve that and keep that water there. I mean, we're not letting dogs go up there anymore.
Should let
so why should we let something like that? So this is a big deal. it's fallen on its pretty good ears.
So yeah, our city policy does not allow for drones to be flown from city properties, but we don't control that airspace. It's a challenging piece. We're battling this. So really, if someone's standing in park controlling a drone or in the parking lot, they can't be doing that. But we really have no way at this point of someone that is standing on a right of way or someplace else and flying that drone or flying from Forest Service around there that we can. So, but again, that's one of the things that the Rangers are doing out there is trying to make sure that we have people following those rules to kind of minimize the chances of that, but also working on some of the forestry mitigation projects up there. I don't know if I answered your question. It's a good grant. It's not enough to get it all done. We've been doing it for probably 20 years. We've been taking bigger bites out of it as we go, and that's really kind of the best we can do it at this point. It's really ongoing work. And Danielle, have you read the master plan? Anything you would add to fire mitigation up there?
Sorry, I wasn't engaged.
Just a question about button rock and fires and the mitigation work we've been doing over the years. And question, is it enough and are we really, it's a start.
I mean, yeah, the goal that we put in the plan was to work on implementation and getting grants and working in bigger cross-boundary, large acreage properties so that we're making a bigger difference and working with the National Forest Service that surrounds it and Boulder County. And so, Price has been really great at winning those grants and really doing that work. And I think the backdrop of the news and the climate really just kind of supports this. People are aware of it now. And I think even maybe just 5 years ago, this wasn't, understanding that working in a cross-boundary fashion to get more acres done wasn't as well-known or popular of an idea. So.
You want to answer your question again, see if we can get, are we getting there?
So what was the
No, well, to be fair, it was an open-ended question that wasn't an exact answer. I think my pause is more so of, well, shoot, this seems like a more urgent problem that we should be talking about. Okay. But that might just be my
it's
translation. Okay. I mean, a new rec center is really nice too, and it's not going to be all that valuable if you don't have any water to drink. Okay.
Yes.
But it's the first month of meeting of the year, so I'm going to keep it light. Yeah. Were there any other items from the packet from the group? Okay. Items from staff. Very good. Okay. Items from the board. On Zoom, any items from the board? Anna, no. Aaron, no. Tom, no.
Nope.
Scott.
Should we ask council to refer to PRAB for the exchange? Or is that gonna be that'll be?
Can you say it again?
For the land exchange, should we request that council refers back to PRAB or?
I can do that. That's part of my job, my responsibility. I will be saying that. There were some good things said here tonight, and I took note there about that. Certainly, when first presented this, things looked pretty positive in regards to why their argument, but I can't go into that right now because of executive session aspects of this. But now, when the argument of saying about the Kanemoto easement, that's a pretty, even as brief as it was, it's a pretty decent argument. Yeah.
Okay, so.
And
If they're, sorry.
No, I was gonna say they're referring it to PRAB, I guess.
Well, I guess.
It's not the process, because the ordinance says that council does have to refer it.
Has to. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if we had to
do
do
that,
something.
just make sure that.
Yeah.
Sure, council does.
Yeah, we want PRAB to really give us mull this thing over and need it out.
If you want to look at the code, chapter 14 to 52.
And again, thank you, Danielle, for saying that, but just so you take your notes, Scott, but I think what Jeff and I stepped out to talk about was, if council directs us to do this, we recognize it's gonna be a heavy lift for this group, and I know that you take this extremely seriously. We will start trying to get information out as soon as possible, and some of the things we'll probably do, send the code out, send some of the information out that you can start, first read that, whatever, page 1200 or whatever, read through that, and then we'll start getting you information prior to that meeting, that anything we can that's consistent with what council directs us to do.
Something that I would like is, I'd like to actually see where this is. I personally, it doesn't mean we need a field trip, but I wasn't able, from what we received, to figure out where that parcel was. I'd like to just go and be there. That helps me, I don't know, picture what I'm doing, because so much when we're talking about parks and things like that, I've been to that park and I can make decisions and I can think about it, but I haven't been to this. I don't know where this is. So if there was a way that, I don't know, I could get directions to there and I could go read this while I'm sitting there, that would be nice.
Danielle, what do you want
Well,
cautiously say? I know you're.
there's three attachments to the council com. So if you go to packet page 1269, you can see the vicinity map that shows these properties. So, if you're driving out State Highway 119, and you take a right on East County Line Road, and then you take a left on Road 20 and a half, they're along Road 20 and a half.
Didn't we meet out that way for our
We were close to there because we were on an open space tour where we looked at the Sherwood open space. And Sherwood is west of and adjacent to the Distal property. But if you look in the packet, the first attachment is a vicinity map that shows you what I just said. And then the others are aerials that kind of zoom in. So it's meant to orient you, like this is where it is, this is where the city boundary is, this is where these are in relation to it.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
There is an access, right?
There's no public access. This is an active, so Distal is an active mining site. Tall is active mining and fill site, so there's no access, but you'll see them. There's signs there that have their signs up on the north side of the road there as you drive 20 and a half.
And Distal has its time
road.
frame of 8 years, right?
So 2033
Right.
is the mining
And
permit.
the other has a longer term. I don't know.
We'll have that information for you.
I need to get that.
We'll make sure, so maybe Danielle, if I could do this for you, you can keep looking at me. But I talked about trying to get you some other information. Danielle has been working for council presentations, getting you ready for PRAB. But maybe if you have questions you want to make sure that Danielle includes in her PRAB update, you can start sending that stuff to, I was going to say us, but her, to make sure that as we get to that upcoming meeting that we're covering as much of what you want to as possible.
And this is confusing, and we're going to need, as a council, if it was confusing to our public invited to be heard, it's just as confusing because it's, you're switching gears all the time to look at the next thing.
Yeah.
I have one other one.
Sure.
I didn't know if there was, not to be the pickleball type of person, but it's not pickleball related. So the big community that's growing a lot is more gravel riding, which works out great for Longmont. It's not just mountain bike riding. And so there's a lot of questions in the cycling community of being able to leverage ditch access roads. And I know the city is like a member or is the owner of many of the area ditches to open those up, especially along like Nelson and St. Clair and Hygiene sort of areas, as well as some places east. If those could be open, we just don't understand, quite frankly, why, what the concern is. If those are quasi owned by the public, why those gravel roads couldn't be used by the community to ride on or
probably want to get some of our legal, it's complicated and every single one is going to be different because those ditches have historic easements that aren't truly they're property right easements. So a lot of times those are on private property or city property or in areas that they have a prescriptive easement to go out there to work on it, to maintain it, but it's not the ditch company's property. So it's someone's else's underlying property. So the city, even though they may be the majority shareholder on it, if it goes through someone's private property, we have the ability to go out there and make sure we can deliver water to our system. That's Colorado law, that we have the right to get water from our point of diversion to our space. So we can drive out onto that private property. We can't grant access to others. So that's one piece. If it's not on our physically owned property, our prescriptive easement does not allow us to grant that easement to someone else.
Okay.
The ditch companies also, even though we may be major shareholders in them, are typically private entities that have other shareholders. And if that bike rider ends up going over the handlebars into the ditch, hurt in the ditch, that ditch company could be liable for that, as could be all those other shareholders on that ditch company. The other piece is a lot of times as we look at our master planning of how we do trails within the city, you guys know as much as anyone, we're always trying to balance the public recreation needs with the natural resource areas. And as Aaron talked about, sometimes those ditches are the kind of last refuge of kind of wildlife in our area. It's a man-made facility, but because they're on private property and they're not used all the time, the ditch companies aren't always out there, they are places and corridors that wildlife tend to use a lot. So that's this three kind of things for me throwing out there, Scott, that could be challenges we'd have to look at before we could say, yeah, we just want to open them up. Anyone else?
Would you send us those locations just so that we could?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. That's the short answer. Sure, no, that's great, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things like people just see it and they're like, that should be great. And, they Google who owns that ditch and they're like, the city seems to own it, so we should be able to get there. And then they're on my case.
I see.
So, okay, cool, great, thank you.
Any other items from the board?
None for me.
All right, I had one small one, kind of left field-ish. I noticed I was at Lou Miller Park, and often at Lou Miller Park there's a lot of Canadian geese who like to, have their waste, leave it around all over the place. I noticed this year there is one of those fake wolves out of it. Is that the city that put that there? Or is it a resident?
Yes. We do. It's a coyote.
Coyote. Oh,
Yep, it's
sorry.
a coyote. It's one of our coyotes we put out there to try to help
I think it works.
discourage some of the geese, but they also get vandalized and stolen by probably kids. But anyway, I guess you don't want to see what.
Being next to a high school, can you?
I know exactly.
Yeah.
So they have a hard time staying out there. So we haven't done the sit stay does not work for them all the time. So
Can't try any coyotes.
exactly. But it's one of the pieces we do. Lou Miller is also one of the parks that we do allow people that we have a program where people can have their private dogs haze geese on golf courses and in several of our parks.
But there's a time you can. You can this time of year.
Yes.
It's March that it's.
Yeah. And then we also do additional sidewalk sweepings out in that area. It was one of the last conversations I had with Timber because this came up again. So I will pass on that you think the coyotes are working because I had a little bit of pushback
Seriously.
on them, but they're not that expensive, so we can do it, but someone has a pretty good collection of coyotes, I think. So,
Do you think we could borrow those for Twin Peaks Golf Course?
yeah, do we have an Amazon account?
Is that way you,
I don't know, so,
We have some there, so they do.
yeah.
coyotes? The fake ones?
Yeah, down by 4, in that pond.
I don't think golf's putting them out there though.
Maybe all of yours are going over.
Yeah. By the way, they fit in my truck perfectly.
They're taking a walk on around.
And maybe we do get some wolves, some grizzlies, and some other.
Lean into it.
Because we do like discourage high school kids sometimes too. It's like,
Well, yeah. There's more I can go into that. Out of the scope of this board. All right. that's it. We can move to adjournment, and if there's a motion to adjourn. Thank you. That was a weird way to say that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Is there a second? To adjourn.
I second.
Okay, thank you, Tom. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. All right, we are adjourned. It's gonna be a good year.